Hello, and welcome to Dr. Jimlapbap's musical What Ifs. Today, we are going to check out what Schoenberg's 12-tone or dodecaphonic piece would sound like if it were pentatonic, or 5 tones. Now, if you're wondering, I really am a doctor. Technically, I'm a doctor of philosophy and music composition. But the original meaning of doctor means teacher anyway, so really the medical people are the one who stole the term. But yes, I am actually really fully qualified to teach this stuff in the real world. So, let's start with a little background refresher, or if you're new to this, I guess it's a fresher. To get right to the music, skip to wherever I've decided to post the time to where just the music is, and you won't need my explanations. This is basically a crash course. It's grossly oversimplified, details are left out, but the goal is to get the gist of it so you can at least have some understanding of what I've done to this music. Starting from the beginning, in Western classical music, that's generally Europe from about 1100 on, there's generally this trend of things getting more complicated until they decide to hit the reset button. This happened from the medieval to the end of the Renaissance. They hit reset, and then Baroque era got more and more complex, and then they reset, and then the classical went on to the Romantic. And so at the 20th century, there's this guy in Austria, felt like it was up to him to bring it to its logical conclusion of complexity. Schoenberg called this the emancipation of tonality. Tonality basically is the idea that one tone or pitch provides all the basis for a musical section or piece, or maybe just a little phrase. But there is a single tone that is basically home or more important. Generally, we mostly hear major and minor. And now, an incredibly crude, oversimplified summary of 12 tones / dodecaphonic music by jimlapbap. Schoenberg wanted to have it so that you couldn't possibly hear one note given preference over another. Schoenberg came up with the way to take away any idea of a home note. So he devised a system where you have to use all 12 notes in the chromatic scale before you repeat. When you use all of these notes up, it's called a tone row. You could use it backwards, upside down, backwards and upside down, and transpose from any note, and it would give you all sorts of options to give the piece some sort of unity in his mind. For this, we are going to do Schoenberg's Suite for Piano, Opus 25, The Prelude, composed around 1921 to 1923, which, by the way, means it's in the public domain. Now, what I've done is a MIDI recreation. I watched a couple of performances on YouTube videos to get the gist of the tempo. This piece is very expressive. There's lots of tempo change, lots of rubato. The prelude is only about 1 minute long, so don't worry. If you don't like it, it's going to be over soon. The first are the original notes. It's a computer, so it may be a little too perfect sounding, or it's not expressive enough. It's because it's the computer. The second is removing all the accidentals. No flats, no sharps. Sometimes people call this Pandiatonic. Diatonic is usually the 7-note scale that major and minor fit, but in the same idea that there is no home note. You just, instead of 12 notes, you hear 7. The third version is the Anbemitonic Pentatonic scale. Most people just call this pentatonic. Sometimes it's called the black key scale because all the black keys form this scale. Anbemitonic is a fancy way of saying there are no half steps or no semitones. This is a very, very common scale found throughout the world. This version, when you snap all the pitches to the Anbemitonic Pentatonic scale, it vaguely sounds like certain varieties of Chinese folk music. In this, I took the Pandiatonic version, and all the notes that were not in the pentatonic scale, B and F, were moved up or down to fit. Artistic license. I just picked whichever sounded better. The fourth is the Hirajoshi scale, which is a common scale found in Japanese traditional music. You could call this a minor pentatonic scale because it substitutes notes in the minor scale in place of the major scale. in the pentatonic scale. Since it's a Japanese sounding scale, I swapped out the piano for a MIDI koto. Koto is a plucked zither instrument in Japan. Koto doesn't have the range of a piano, so you're going to hear some notes way too high and way too low to be played by a koto. The fifth version is where Schoenberg starts to ever so slightly turn over in his grave. The tempo has been made pretty much consistent, except for the fermatas where it slows down a little bit, and I use the Pandiatonic version. It has also been moved up an octave, so I can throw in some accompaniment that wouldn't clash with the original piano part. The accompaniment is basically a piano that alternates between the chords of F major 7/G and C major 9. The reason I choose these two chords is because F major 7/G and C major 9 contain all the notes in the diatonic scale. So almost anything the piano plays above the accompaniment will more or less fit somewhere. Here is where I have reintroduced tonality to the 12-tone method. We have taken this G, basically kind of like a G dominant sounding chord, to a C chord. Schoenberg did write tonal music after he finished his 12-tone technique, so let me just acknowledge this. Add some drums and bass guitar, and we've got a nice easy listening piece for version number 5. The last one. This is where Schoenberg starts accelerating his spin rate here. It uses the pentatonic scale again, and is moved up an octave again to make room for accompaniment, and the tempo has been made consistent, and now we have a guitar that is playing pop rock chords, largely the 1 chord, 2 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, and 6 chord, and these are chords very idiomatic to the guitar. If you see sus4, it's because they're easy to play in the G positions. The result is a light rock rendition of Schoenberg. I'm not sure the world has heard those words in that order before. Without further ado, away we go. have jimlapbap. Hello, Dr. Jimlapbap again. Thank you for attending my quasi-educational, quasi-intellectual, hopefully more than quasi-good video. Please let me know if you'd like me to do more of these. I have ideas for more of them. I run this channel 100% by myself. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and I have a Patreon. Thank you for watching again, and class dismissed.